Hey y'all, I'm back. It's Sarah, the wine-loving bookworm. I know I have been totally MIA for a while, pretty much since October, so I really apologize about that. I'm really excited to review books again and wine and do all that stuff for you guys. So I am going to try to do at least 50 this year. We'll see if that works out, but that's kind of my goal. So anyway, I am back. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We had a great Christmas. Oop, there's my dog. Okay, so let's start with the wine, of course. I picked this up at Aldi. I don't know if you guys, you must have Aldi by you, right? They have really great deals and really great deals on wine. So this one's called Villa Nella Pinot Grigio. There it is. So, oh, sorry about that. Goodness gracious. Let's give it a try. And there's my UCF wine glass. They didn't beat LSU. Okay. But they did all right against them, so I think that's something. But, you know, time goes on. That's really good. That's really good, actually. I've never heard of this one, but this is actually really good. Yep. What is it called? Villa Nella Pinot Grigio. Might want to give it a shot if you're a Pinot Grigio fan. Okay, so let's move on to the main event, the book. I read The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. This was my book club book for actually November. So I'm not just neglecting you guys, I'm neglecting everything. I haven't been to book club in several months. I'm going this week. But this was a selection for November. It is pretty long. You know, as you can see, it's got small words, and it's pretty long. It's 500, almost 600 pages. So it's not a small book by any means. So the genre is fiction, and the author, John Boyne, he was born in Ireland, and the book takes place in Ireland, for the most part. He has written 10 novels for adults, 5 for young readers, and a collection of short stories. His most famous was called The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, and I feel like I've heard about it, but I've never read it, so maybe that'll be something I put on my list. And his most critically acclaimed were The Absolutist and A History of Loneliness. So, History of Loneliness sounds kind of interesting. Maybe I'll have to look into those and pick them up. Okay, so this book opens with a young girl going to church with her family in Ireland, in a small town in Ireland, and the priest basically calls her up in front of the entire congregation and calls her out for being pregnant. You know, obviously there's no dad. There, you know, this kid is going to be quote unquote illegitimate, you know, back then. So he literally brings her up and just says what a sinner she is. Like, crazy, right? So I don't know how old she is, maybe 16, I think was the age difference. So young, you know. So she decides, you know, peace out. Like, why am I staying here? And she leaves. Her parents are upset at her. Her father's very disappointed in her. So she decides to take a bus to Dublin. And on the bus to Dublin, she meets a guy who she likes. She thinks he's cool. They're talking and he's funny and whatever. So she has nowhere to go. Like, she's very little money and she's just taking a bus to Dublin. So when she gets there, the guy offers to have her stay with him, but he also has a, you know, quote-unquote roommate. And this guy is not really happy that she's there. He comes and picks him up at the bus station, not really happy that he's there. She ends up living with these two guys, and she, you know, through the passage of time realizes they're homosexual, and they're in a relationship. So that is kind of setting the stage for this whole book. It really is about homosexuality in Ireland, in different areas at the time, different countries in America. Like, it kind of like spans a long time frame talking about this, because she has the baby and she gives him up for adoption. So she's a young kid. What's she gonna do? She's working. You know, once she has the baby, she gives him to a nunnery, and they adopt him out. And he ends up getting adopted by a couple that's pretty, I don't know if I would call them cold. I guess I would call them a bit cold. They're more quirky than anything else. They don't really see him as their legitimate child. They kind of say, oh, he's not his name is, and I don't know how to pronounce this name. It's Cyril, I think, Syril. They always say Cyril the squirrel, like with him, like that's what you make me think of. I have no idea what that refers to, but that's how I think you pronounce his name. Cyril, maybe Cyril. Anyway, Cyril Avery. We're gonna go with that for now. And his parents always are like, oh well, he's not a real Avery. Oh, he's my adoptive son. Oh, he's not my real son. He's not, And so he gets in the habit of calling them by their first names, saying it's my adoptive mom instead of my mom. Things like that. So that's super bizarre, but whatever. They do take care of him. They're, I wouldn't say they're exactly cold. They're just really strange. Okay, so again, like I said, this guy grows up and he realizes at a very early age that he is also gay. He doesn't know about his mom's friends, but that he is gay. Let's leave it at that. And so the book kind of really delves into what it means or meant to be a gay man in Ireland, where it's illegal, where it is, people are killed over this. Ireland at the time, and I think maybe still a bit today, was very ruled by the Catholic Church. So, to be gay was just the ultimate sin. And it was punishable. It was a crime at the time. So it kind of, delves into that. It delves into, him being able to tell people that he's gay. He ends up falling in love with his best friend, and he can't tell him. He doesn't, his best friend's heterosexual. So, it all that kind of inner turmoil and angst, it goes through that. It goes through him moving to Amsterdam, where it's not such a big deal to be gay. It's okay, so you see that. And then at the end, he moves to America, where you're kind of you're in between a little bit. Like, it was in the 80s, I think, where the AIDS crisis really was amping up too. And he was gay in America, and he was openly gay in America, but you felt the bigotry and a little bit of the clapback from people there, although it wasn't quite as bad as maybe Ireland. So that's kind of a general outline of the book. I didn't think I would like this book. I didn't. I read the summaries. I just thought, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I loved it. I really liked this book. I spent an hour and a half one night reading it. Just straight. And I usually end up falling asleep, to be honest, before an hour and a half goes by. But this book just really drew me in, and I really loved it. So, things I liked. I really liked his relationship with his adoptive parents, even though it was so strange and so quirky. It didn't feel like he hated them. It didn't feel like he didn't, I don't know that it was exactly a loving relationship, but it was just what he had. And they were good to him for the most part, and they took care of him, other than kind of saying, you're adopted all the time, I just found it interesting, that whole relationship. Also, Cyril was a very humble character, and I liked how he handled things. He made a lot of mistakes, big mistakes, in his life. Big mistakes. But when he came around to have to face them later on in life, he did so with a lot of grace, I thought, and he did the right thing. That's what I felt. And it was kind of like learning from your past and owning up to your mistakes was also a sort of theme in the book. And again, I liked the way the whole, being gay in Ireland, being gay in America, all that, the evolution of how society has treated these people through the years. And some of it was just downright awful. There were some parts of this book that were awful and tragic, like super tragic. He faced a lot of adversity and tragedy in his life. But the evolution of how people have treated homosexuals throughout the years and through different countries and through the churches and things like that was really interesting to me, sad, but fascinating at the same time. What I didn't like was really just his best friend, the one that he ended up falling in love with. He was just a jerk. I didn't like him. He made me uncomfortable, and it kind of comes around in the end too. He comes back at the end of the story. Just never really liked that character, and I don't know if he needed to be in there. I guess he kind of did for the way the story flew. But I didn't love him. So anyway, like I said, it was long, but it went very quickly. I thought it was very interesting. And then I was interested in the title, like The Heart's Invisible Furies. And there's actually a part at the end of the book where he says, A line came into my mind, something that Hannah Arendt had once said about the poet Auden, that life had manifested the heart's invisible furies on his face. So to me, that kind of meant, you know, all the stuff you hold inside. And I think that's a theme in the book, the stuff you hold inside and the stuff that you're not your true self. Eventually it's going to come out and it's going to manifest itself some way in your outward appearance, or, you know, just that you let everything go at some point. So I really like that line, and I really thought it kind of summed up a lot of the things that went on in the book, a lot of the hidden stuff that people keep hidden. I mean, not only in the book, but in life, you know, people keep things hidden. So, good book. I think you should definitely pick it up. I'm going to try to read something else by him. So again, it's called The Heart's Invisible Furies, John Boyne. So get that book. So anyway, I'm going to take another sip of this wine because it's just sitting here staring at me. Good. Okay, so my book club is this week, and I'm going to go on Thursday. And this is the book we're reading, Sold on a Monday. And there is a very famous picture out there of, in the 1930s, a family, like a bunch of kids sitting on this porch, and they have a sign that says kids for sale or something like that. And so that's, I think, what inspired this book. This is obviously a fictional account, but I know there was a reporter that went and actually, I read it like in the New York Times or something like that. He actually went and researched. He saw that picture and he went and researched and found the kids that were on the porch and, you know, did interviews with them. And it was, most of it was super tragic. But if you ever, you know, maybe Google that, you'll read a little bit about that. And that's where I think this book comes from. Although this book is obviously fictional, I've read not too much of it, just a couple chapters. I'm kind of like on it right now because it seems to be a little trite, but I'm going to give it a chance. So anyway, that's going to be the book that I review next week, definitely. Sold on a Monday by Christina McMorris. So I'll let you know how that one goes. Also, just like a little aside and an FYI, I watched a pretty good miniseries on Netflix called An Innocent Man. And it's based off a John Grisham book. And it's not fiction, it's true life, about these murders and these people that were tried and convicted for murders in this little town called Ada, Oklahoma. It was good. I really want to read, there's several books. Innocent Man and I think The Dreams of Ada and Journey Through Terror or something like that, that have been written about it. Wrongfully convicted men and why they were wrongfully convicted. So I might want to pick up those books. It's just kind of an aside. It was a pretty good miniseries. I just like to learn more about it, so that's why I'd like to read the books. They kind of build themselves as the next Making a Murderer, and if you haven't watched that, watch it, because it's amazing on Netflix, but they're definitely not Making a Murderer caliber. But it was very interesting, and it definitely was watchable, and led me to these books that I want to read. So anyway, if you're interested in true crime, I love that stuff. It's a very good series to watch. Not as good as Making a Murderer, but a good one. And also one that led me to those books. So maybe sometime this year, I will add those to books I will review. So that's all for me, and I promise that I'm going to do this more often. So this is just the start of a great 2019. I hope you guys had a great holiday season, a very happy new year, and I hope that you will continue to tune in and listen to my book reviews. So, and pick up yourself some, what is this called? Villanella Pinot Grigio. It's good. And until next time, cheers.